Imagine finding a yellow rock that couldn't feed you, couldn't protect you, and couldn't keep you warm. Now imagine that people would one day kill, conquer, and build entire civilizations just to own it. That rock was gold. Today, governments lock it inside vaults guarded by soldiers. Investors call it one of the safest assets in the world. Families pass it down for generations. Couples exchange it during weddings. Millions of people buy it whenever they fear the future. But none of this explains the real mystery. Why did ancient humans love gold? Gold cannot satisfy a single survival need. You cannot eat it. You cannot drink it. You cannot build a shelter from it. Evolution rewards things that help you survive. So why did our ancestors become obsessed with something so useless? To answer that question, we have to travel back long before money existed. Before banks, before kings, before cities, before writing. Imagine waking up 50,000 years ago. Your biggest goal isn't becoming rich or earn money. It's surviving until tomorrow. Every sunrise is a new hunt. Every sunset brings danger. Food is never guaranteed. Clean water is precious. A single injury could become a death sentence. Every object around you must be made useful. A sharp stone becomes a cutting tool. A long branch becomes a spear. Animal skin becomes clothing. Fire becomes protection. Everything has value because everything has a purpose. Gold has none of those purposes. It simply shines. That should have made humans ignore it. Instead, they became fascinated by it. That makes gold one of the strangest objects in human history. Scientists believe early humans occasionally discovered natural gold in rivers. Unlike most metals, gold sometimes appears in its pure form. No furnace is needed to reveal it. Nature does the work for you. Imagine walking beside a river after heavy rain. Thousands of dull stones cover the riverbed. Then one flashes like the sun itself. You stop walking. Your eyes lock onto it. Everything else suddenly fades into the background. Without realizing it, your brain has already made a decision. Something this unusual must be important. Our ancestors evolved to notice rare things. A strange footprint could reveal a predator. A bright fruit could mean food. An unfamiliar sound could save your life. Survival rewarded curiosity. Gold accidentally hijacked that instinct. It looked different from almost every other stone on Earth. It reflected sunlight with an almost unnatural brightness. It felt heavier than its size suggested. It never seemed to lose its color. You could leave it in the rain for years. Nothing happened. You could bury it underground. Nothing happened. You could throw it into a fire. Nothing happened. Almost everything in nature changes. Wood rots. Leaves decay. Animal bones slowly disappear. Iron turns into rust. Even mountains slowly wear away. Gold simply remained gold. To ancient humans, that was astonishing. It seemed to ignore the rules that governed everything else. It looked almost immortal. And humans have always been fascinated by things that appear to live forever. If gold looked immortal, it also looked impossible to fake. Every piece had the same unmistakable color. The same unusual weight, the same brilliant shine. Long before chemistry existed, ancient humans already trusted their own eyes. Gold earned that trust naturally, but something even stranger was happening. Gold wasn't valuable because one civilization declared it valuable. Almost every major civilization reached the same conclusion on its own. The Egyptians treasured gold. The people of Mesopotamia treasured gold. The civilizations of the Indus Valley treasured gold. Ancient China treasured gold. The Greeks admired gold. The Romans built fortunes with gold. The civilizations of the Americas treasured gold long before Europeans arrived. They were separated by oceans, separated by thousands of years, separated by completely different languages. Yet they all fell in love with the same metal. That is one of history's greatest coincidences. Or perhaps, it wasn't a coincidence at all. Gold possesses a combination of properties almost no other material has. It doesn't rust. It doesn't tarnish. It doesn't dissolve in ordinary water. It is soft enough to shape by hand, yet durable enough to survive for thousands of years. Archaeologists regularly discover gold jewelry that looks almost identical to the day it was buried. Some of it is over 5,000 years old. Imagine finding an object buried before the pyramids were built, then discovering it still shines. To ancient people, that must have looked like magic. Gold became associated with eternity, with gods, with the sun, with immortality itself. The ancient Egyptians even called gold the flesh of the gods. Pharaohs were buried wearing enormous amounts of it, not because they needed money after death, because they believed gold belonged in the eternal world. But gold wasn't only becoming sacred, it was becoming useful in a completely different way. Imagine two strangers meeting for the first time. One has extra grain, the other has beautifully crafted tools. They want to trade, but what if neither wants what the other has? This problem became known as the coincidence of wants. For trade to happen, both people must want exactly what the other is offering. As villages grew into towns, that became increasingly difficult. Humans needed something everyone would accept, something that wouldn't rot, something easy to carry, something difficult to fake, something that existed in limited quantities. Gold quietly satisfied every one of those conditions. It wasn't chosen because kings ordered it. It was chosen because it solved a problem every growing civilization eventually faced. How do you store value without storing food that spoils, or animals that die, or tools that eventually break? Gold could preserve wealth across generations. A father could bury it. His grandchildren could dig it up decades later. It would look exactly the same. Very few things in nature can make that promise. Gold could, and that changed everything. Once humans discovered they could store wealth, the meaning of gold began to change. It was no longer just a beautiful object. It became a promise that today's work could be saved for tomorrow. Imagine spending months growing more grain than your family could eat. If you kept the grain, it would eventually rot. If you kept livestock, it could become sick or die. If you kept tools, they would wear out over time. But if you exchanged that surplus for gold, your wealth could survive for decades. For the first time in history, humans could preserve the value of their labor. That simple idea transformed civilization. Farmers could save, merchants could travel farther, kingdoms could collect taxes, empires could finance armies. Long-distance trade suddenly became easier. A merchant could cross hundreds of miles carrying enormous wealth in a small pouch. Gold connected people who would never meet again. Trust slowly expanded beyond families and villages. Civilizations became larger than ever before. Gold did not build civilization by itself, but it made civilization much easier to organize. Soon, kings wanted more of it. Empires searched for it. Wars they fought over it. Some of history's greatest expeditions began with a single rumor. A mountain filled with gold. A river rich with gold. A city covered in gold. Perhaps no legend became more famous than El Dorado. European explorers crossed jungles they barely understood. Thousands died chasing a city that probably never existed. Not because they needed gold to survive, because they believed gold could buy anything. The obsession had become bigger than the metal itself. It had entered the human imagination. Gold had become a symbol of power, of success, of security, of immortality. Even today, winning athletes don't receive bronze medals, they don't receive iron medals, they receive gold. Because somewhere deep inside the human mind, gold still represents the highest achievement. Thousands of years have passed, yet that ancient instinct remains almost unchanged. But another revolution was quietly beginning, one that would change humanity's relationship with gold forever.